The Buffalo shooter who shot and killed 10 individuals in a supermarket in Buffalo, all of them African Americans, and he also injured 3 others. He left a manifesto that made it clear that he intended to drive 200 miles away from the town that he lives in order to carry out this violent act. And he made it clear that he's doing it because he believes that minorities and black people are here to replace white people like him, and he needs to do something about it. And so there's a lot that you might see online with right-wingers trying to provide cover for this guy, but I wanna make sure you don't fall victim to their disinformation, because I read all 180 pages of his manifesto, and I wanna share some of the excerpts from it. I thought this part was telling. He wrote, quote, "I started browsing 4chan in May of 2020 after extreme boredom. Remember, this was during the outbreak of COVID. There, I learned through infographics and memes that the white race is dying out and that the Jews and the elite were behind this." Okay, so let's pause for a second. You can find, it's archived, but you can find his social media posts prior to getting radicalized by these message boards online. And he was, by all counts, a normal guy, a normal kid, okay? Took COVID seriously. In one reply on Twitter, he asked someone like, why would you even risk someone else's life by not following the guidelines? I'm paraphrasing, but he's essentially saying stuff like that. I give you those details because it shows you just how quickly a seemingly normal individual can be rapidly radicalized by these platforms, by these message boards, places like 4chan. But let me give you more details on what he said his intentions were. He did this portion of the manifesto where he answers questions that people might have about his motives and why he carried out this violent act. Why did you decide to carry out the attack? I carried out the attack to show to the replacers that as long as the white man lives, our land will never be theirs and they will never be safe from us. To directly reduce immigration rates to European lands by intimidating and physically removing the replacers themselves, to intimidate the replacers already living on our lands to emigrate back to their home countries. Let me read one more graphic. He also says his intentions are to agitate the political enemies of my people into action, to cause them to overextend their own hand and experience the eventual and inevitable backlash as a result, to incite violence, retaliation, and further divide between the European people and the replacers currently occupying European soil. Let's just note how, the guy, he mentions Native Americans briefly in the manifesto, but his argument is, yeah, but white people have been here for a long time. And so as a result, this is a white country. This belongs to us. So totally excusing what white settlers did in America, the brutality, the barbarism toward Native Americans, not a big deal, right? It's okay when we're the replacers. And we've been here for so long that this is our land. That's the kind of mentality he had, and it's the garbage that he reads on these message boards.
Yeah, so for guys, the scariest part of this is now nearly half of Republican voters say that they believe in great replacement theory.
Yep.
So it's some strongly believe in it, others somewhat believe in it. The Jews are somewhat replacing us with Latinos and blacks, goes the theory, right? By the way, I say the Jews because not only did he talk about it in his manifesto over and over, it is a connecting theme in all of these shooters. So the Pittsburgh shooter that shot up a synagogue also talked about how the Jews were replacing white people in the country. And this goes all the way back, of course, to the Nazis who chanted, "The Jews will not replace us." Yes, that's the chant that they then chanted in Charlottesville, the Nazi right wing here in America. And so it all connects, and it is all connected to the great replacement theory. That is, and in fact, this particular shooter in Buffalo explained in his manifesto, he said that almost the same exact thing that the shooter in Christchurch, New Zealand did. Remember that mass shooting where he killed dozens of Muslims? He blamed the puppet master as being Angela Merkel, at the time the leader of Germany. This guy took out Merkel and put in George Soros. Same exact words except for Soros, the Jewish puppet master that is looking to replace us. One of the questions that I have is, replace us for what? Like, nobody ever talks about that. And a lot of Republicans, because now tons of Republicans, including the number 3 Republican in the House, Elise Stefanik, are defending the replacement theory. But what are you guys worried is going to be replaced? So if you said to me, somebody's going to replace you, I'd say, where? To do what, right?
Well,
the assumption is they're going to replace us in having power in this country.
Yes.
And so, Anna, I just want to point out the super obvious, because right-wing media will defend the replacement theory and mainstream media will go, I can't tell anything, I don't know anything about news, I'll call it 50-50. They'll be outraged at this, right? But when you say it's obviously racist, the great replacement theory, a lot of them will get skittish because now nearly half of Republicans believe it, right? And guys, if you say only white people should hold power, and oh my God, the Latinos or the black people or Jews, etc., are going to replace us in having power, that is by definition racist.
But do you know why they think that that's a bad thing, other than they believe that they would lose power? They're concerned that once they're the minority, in terms of numbers, obviously, well then people of color are gonna be as vicious to us as we've been to them.
Yeah, 100%, Anna, and we've talked about that on the show before, but I wanna make a very important clarification. It's projection, because left-wing white people don't think, oh my God, what if a Latino were to replace me in power? They don't think that at all. They think, well, what difference does it make? Okay, I was a councilman and now that black lady over there is a councilman. What difference does it make, right? But because they actually believe in equality. But white right-wingers, they think, no, I love oppressing you, and I assume that having power means I get to oppress you and you can't do a goddamn thing about it, and I love feeling, acting superior to you. And so they assume that when minorities get the power, that they're going to do the same to them. Well, good news for you, evil right-wingers. We're not anywhere near as evil as you guys. In fact, we're not at all evil. In fact, we want you to be equal to everyone else. But I know that's the thing that bothers you the most. That's the whole point of great replacement theory. They don't want to be equal.
A few more things I want to mention from his manifesto before we wrap this up. He also, in the Q&A portion of his manifesto, asks, was the attack anti-immigration in origin? And he says, yes, beyond all doubt, anti-immigration, anti-ethnic replacement, and anti-cultural replacement. By the way, if I recall correctly, the right wing loves to talk about how black people are allegedly culturally violent. It's an interesting accusation to make when most of the mass shooters in this country have been young white males. Now, do I think that this is a cultural characteristic of white people in America? No, I don't think that. But I do think that it's fascinating that we see projection among right wingers in like every facet of life, whether it has to do with sexual identity, whether it has to do with projections on violence. It's just, you see it happen and play out over and over again. He also justifies, by the way, killing children. I want to go to the last graphic here because it gives you an idea of how depraved and disgusting this person is. Children of replacers, because he asks, is it okay to kill children? Like, why are we killing children? You know, they're innocent. He says, children of replacers do not stay children. They become adults and reproduce, creating more replacers to replace your people. They grow up and vote against your people's own wishes for the interests of their own people and identity. They grow up and take the potential homes of your people for themselves. They occupy positions of power, remove wealth, and destroy social trust. Just an unbelievable way of thinking. And look, I think all of what we're experiencing politically in the country right now is intertwined, because which political group is taking freedom and liberty away from women by not allowing them to make medical decisions about their own bodies? It's the right wing, which, as Cenk mentioned earlier, is now dominated by this ideology where you have more than half of Republican voters believing in this nonsense conspiracy theory of white replacement. And so I think that the plan here is to purge the country, in their minds. I mean, it's a ridiculous notion, but in their minds, purge the country of anyone who's not white, and then basically force white women to reproduce, right? To bulk up the numbers of white people in America.
Yeah, and have white men be completely in charge, like they would say, the good old days. The good old days when we had slaves and women couldn't vote and they were chattel to be used in our households. And no other minority had rights at all, and we would bar people like Asians. It goes on and on. And so look, does white culture in America have a problem with violence? No, I think that's too broad. Problem with racism, obviously this country has a problem with racism overall. But if you get more specific and ideological and not base it on race, does the right wing in this country have a history of racism? Well, not just a history, right now, there's no question about it. They celebrate racism all the time, all the time. Their whole cry about freedom of speech, we have disproven it hundreds of times on this show. They do not want to protect any other speech other than racist speech. And do they have a history? Do they have a culture in the right wing in this country of violence? Hell yeah, they do. They overwhelming celebration of violence. And now 40% of Republicans say that it might be time for political violence. Hey, 40% of Republicans, congratulations. You got the violence you were looking for. Are you happy now?
I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah,
they've been craving a race war, and like I have no doubt in my mind that there are right wingers in this country who saw that mass shooting and thought this is exactly what needs to happen. Because, and by the way, let's just be clear about one other thing. This is not a lone wolf, okay? Let's stop pretending like, oh, this is a one-off. No, we don't have a problem in the country. We absolutely do have a problem. This isn't just something that permeates or exists in the dark corners of the internet. This is something that has become mainstream, this ideology, through programming over at Fox News, through the campaigning that we see from Elise Stefanik, Republican lawmaker from New York, Matt Gaetz. We'll provide all those receipts on the show in a little bit. But this is a problem. It is an identity. It's part of America's identity. It's part of our history. When you really look at the prevalence of right-wing extremism in America, the violence against people of color in America, we got to be real about that, and we got to be real about how people are getting radicalized and have a real conversation about how to mitigate that. Otherwise, we're just going to keep running around in the same circle over and over and over again, and I'm afraid that that's exactly what's going to happen in the aftermath of this tragic event.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.